Okay, so I have to be honest with you. For the longest time, I felt like I was just a pushover, you know? I'd leave a store having bought something I absolutely didn't need. I'd say yes to a favor I had zero time for, or I'd find myself donating to some cause I'd literally just heard about. And I kept asking myself the same question, a question I'm willing to bet you've probably asked yourself too. Right? It's such a frustrating feeling, isn't it? You feel outplayed or maybe just a little bit weak-willed. Well, that exact question is what sent me down a rabbit hole looking for answers. And that's how I found Robert Cialdini's incredible book, Influence. And what I discovered wasn't some list of my personal failings. No, it was a total revelation about how the human brain is wired. And it all started with this one single idea. The book calls it a click-whir response. Let me read that definition. It's an automatic, stereotyped behavior pattern that's triggered by a specific feature of a situation. So think of it like this. Click, some trigger in the world happens. Whir, an automatic behavior tape just starts playing in your head. And for me, that was a huge aha moment. I realized my tendency to say yes wasn't a character flaw. It's a feature, not a bug, of being human. Our world is just so complicated. We need these mental shortcuts to get through the day. The problem, though, is that some people know exactly which buttons to press to make our automatic programs run for their benefit. So I figured it's time to learn the code. And this is the roadmap for the journey that I went on and the one we're about to go on together. We're going to break down the 6 weapons of influence that Cialdini lays out: the rule of reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and finally scarcity. You can think of these as the fundamental principles we have to grasp if we want to be more aware of all the persuasive attempts that are flying at us every single day. All right, so the very first principle I dug into was the rule of reciprocation. And this one felt so familiar it was almost uncomfortable. It's that deep, gut-level feeling of obligation you get when someone does you a favor. It's the age-old rule of give and take. Except sometimes it's just take. And just to show you how deeply baked into us this is, the sociologist Alvin Goldner said, "There is no human society that does not subscribe to the rule." Let that sink in. This isn't just, a cultural habit in some places. It is a fundamental part of what makes us human. We are literally hardwired to repay debts, and that wiring is incredibly easy to exploit. And here's where it gets really interesting. The rule is so powerful, as it says here, that it works even with uninvited or unwanted gifts. I mean, think about the free sample at the supermarket. You didn't ask for that tiny cube of cheese on a toothpick. You might not have even really wanted it. But the second you take it, you feel this subtle pressure. You feel obligated to listen to their pitch, maybe even to buy the whole block. That tiny free gift creates a psychological weight, a debt that we feel this almost physical need to get rid of. Now, this gets even more sophisticated with something called the rejection, then retreat technique. Let's walk through the steps here. First, someone makes a huge request, one they fully expect you to turn down. Like, hey, would you be willing to volunteer with our organization for 15 hours a week for the next 6 months? And of course, you say no. Then they immediately retreat to a much smaller request, which was their real goal all along. Oh, okay. Well, could you at least donate $20 to the cause? You see what happened? Their retreat feels like a concession. They gave something up. And now that rule of reciprocity kicks in, and you feel this powerful pull to make a concession of your own by saying yes to the smaller request. It's brilliant, and it's dangerous. Okay, moving on to the next principle. And this one I found is especially sneaky because it actually hijacks a quality we all admire in people: consistency. We all have this deep, almost obsessive need to be consistent with things we've already said or done. The second we make a choice or take a stand, we feel this immense internal pressure to stick with it. And this gives rise to the classic foot-in-the-door technique. Here's how it works. A persuader starts with a really small, almost trivial request. Something like, would you mind putting this tiny 3-inch sticker in your window to support traffic safety? It's easy to say yes. But then, a week later, they come back. Hey, since you're such a supporter of the cause, would you be willing to put this giant, kind of ugly billboard on your front lawn? And believe it or not, studies show people who agreed to the tiny sticker were way more likely to agree to the massive billboard. And why? Because that first little yes started to change how they saw themselves. They began to think, I'm the kind of person who supports this cause. To say no to the bigger request would feel, well, inconsistent with that new self-image. And this principle gets supercharged by one simple action: putting it in writing.
The physical act of writing something down makes that commitment so much more powerful. There's a reason the car salesman has you be the one to fill out the sales agreement. When you write down your goals or your promises, they just feel more concrete. It solidifies the commitment in your brain and makes you far, far more likely to see it through, whether it's good for you or not. The third weapon I learned about is social proof, and this is our natural tendency to decide what's correct by finding out what other people think is correct. At its core, it's pretty simple. When we're not sure what to do, we look around to see what everybody else is doing. And if a whole lot of people are doing something, we just assume it must be the right thing to do. Now, this gets really powerful under two key conditions. First, when we're uncertain. In a new or confusing situation, we are desperate for clues on how to behave, so we look to the crowd. And second, it's strongest when we see the behavior in people who are similar to us. This is exactly why advertisers use testimonials from moms just like you or regular guys. We are way more influenced by the actions of our peers than by people who seem totally different from us. But here's the thing. Social proof can be faked. It's so easy to create artificial social proof. Cialdini uses the perfect example of bartenders salting their tip jars. At the start of their shift, they'll throw a few of their own dollar bills in there. Why? To make it look like other people have already been tipping. That creates the social proof. It signals that tipping is the normal, expected thing to do here. And that, in turn, makes more people tip. It's a simple but incredibly effective manipulation of our herd instinct. Okay, this next one feels almost ridiculously obvious at first, but the science behind it is just wild. It's the principle of liking. And it's as simple as this. We are much more likely to say yes to people we know and like. But what I discovered is that the things that make us like someone can be very specific, and they can absolutely be manufactured by people who want to persuade us. So here are some of the key factors that Cialdini points out. Physical attractiveness. We just have this automatic bias where we think good-looking people are more talented, kind, and honest. Similarity. We like people who are like us, whether it's opinions, background, or even just how they dress. Compliments. I mean, come on. We are absolute suckers for flattery. Contact and cooperation. We tend to like people we've worked with towards a common goal. And finally, conditioning and association. Think celebrity endorsements. We transfer our positive feelings about the celebrity to the product. A really skilled salesperson will use all of these, subtly, to build rapport and get you to like them, which makes saying no feel almost personal and difficult. So, what's the defense against this? I learned to ask myself one really simple but powerful question. When I find myself really liking a salesperson way too quickly, I mentally hit pause and I ask this: would I make the same decision if this request came from someone I didn't like at all? And that little question is amazing because it helps you separate your feelings about the person from the actual merits of the deal. Let's move on to a really big one: deference to authority. We have this incredibly deep-seated sense of duty to authority. I mean, from the moment we're born, we're taught that obeying our parents, teachers, and experts is the right thing to do. And look, most of the time it's good advice. But that conditioning is so strong, it can lead us to obey automatically without a single thought. 50%. I want you to look at that number. What do you think that means? Well, in one study, nurses received a phone call from a doctor they had never met who ordered them to give a patient an obvious overdose of a non-approved drug. 50% of them were about to do it without hesitation. The simple title of doctor was enough to switch off their professional judgment and trigger total, blind obedience. That's how powerful this is. And here is the absolutely crucial part to understand. We don't even respond to actual authority most of the time. We respond to the mere symbols of authority. Things like titles: doctor, professor, CEO, uniforms, a police officer's outfit, a pilot's uniform, and other trappings, like a fancy car or an expensive suit. These symbols alone can trigger our click-we're obedience response, even when the person has no real expertise. This is what the famous Milgram experiments showed so terrifyingly: just how far normal, everyday people would go, inflicting what they believed was terrible pain on someone, all because a guy in a lab coat told them to keep going. So to fight this, to break that spell, I learned to ask two very important questions. First, is this authority figure a genuine expert in this specific field? An actor who plays a doctor on TV is not a medical expert. And second, how truthful can I expect this expert to be right now? Do they have something to gain if I comply? Just asking those two questions can snap you out of that automatic obedience and let you make a much smarter choice.
And now we come to the final weapon in this arsenal of influence, the scarcity principle. This principle states that we see opportunities as more valuable when they are less available. It's the simple, fundamental reason we want something so much more when we think we can't have it. You see this everywhere, don't you? Limited time only 2 left in stock. This sale ends today. These are not just dumb marketing phrases. They are direct psychological triggers designed to light up the scarcity principle in your brain. It turns out the fear of losing something is a much more powerful motivator for people than the prospect of gaining something of equal value. By making you feel like an opportunity is about to vanish, they make it seem infinitely more attractive. And scarcity gets turned up to 11 under these 2 conditions. First, when the scarcity is new. We want something more if its availability has just recently dropped, compared to something that's always been rare. And second, when we have to compete with others for it. Just think about an auction or a Black Friday sale where people are literally fighting over a TV. That combination of limited supply and social competition can completely short-circuit our rational brain and create this frantic emotional urge to just get it. So after going through and learning about these 6 incredibly powerful principles, I have to tell you, the world started to look a little different. I started seeing them in action everywhere. And the scary part is, in our crazy, fast-paced world, we are relying on these mental shortcuts more than ever before. So this last part is all about, what do we do now? What do we do with this new awareness? This really is the most important question, isn't it? Now that we understand these principles, reciprocation, consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity, how do we actually use this knowledge to defend ourselves and just make better, more conscious decisions in our own lives? This right here is the single biggest takeaway from my entire journey with this book. Awareness is our best defense. The point isn't to become some cynical hermit who distrusts every kind word or friendly gesture. I mean, these principles, when they're used ethically, are actually the glue that holds society together. No, the goal is to become a more conscious person, to simply have the ability to recognize when one of these weapons is being aimed at you, so you can hit pause on that click-whir automatic response and make a deliberate choice that's right for you. And really, that's the true gift that this knowledge gives you. It's the power of conscious choice. For me, diving into Cialdini's work was genuinely life-changing. And if any of this resonated with you, I can't recommend the book enough. If you want to go deeper, you can check the description below for a link to it. And I've also put a link down there to a full chapter-by-chapter summary if you want to keep exploring these ideas right now.